back to That Dad Guy. It's September 19th, 2023, and today we are going to continue the series on Canadian postage stamps. So those are the albums that are put out every year by Canada Post to put all the stories in one place for all the stamps they've issued that year. We have gone through the Unity albums where my father used to keep his Canadian stamps, and then when he got to the point where he just wanted to buy them as a whole, maybe it was becoming a little bit more arduous for him to try to collect the year, and he wanted to make sure he got them all, he started buying the year-end albums. Well, today we are talking about 2017. This is probably the most Canadian-looking year-end album that they put out, and it has a good reason for that. In 2017, Canada celebrated 150 years as a nation, and so all the stamps that came out that year have a very Canadian look to them, have a very Canadian story to tell, and maybe these are some stories you've never known about Canada. You're probably familiar with Canada and hockey. It's depicted on the front of the cover. Yes, there's going to be some hockey in there, but there are going to be other monumental things that have to do with Canada that the stamps are going to show along the way. So let's get into it. But make sure you're subscribed. If this is the first time you've seen me, I'll let you get to the end of the video if you like. Get to the end of the video. If you like it, subscribe, leave me a positive comment, like, and share with your friends. That's all I ask, not too much. If you like it and you want to continue watching it, why not put the notification bell on so you know when new videos are coming out. All right, let's look at 2017. One day I might find a better way to do this, but this is kind of the point of view I want you to see because it's me seeing the book too, and it's been a while since I've gone through some of these albums, so sometimes it is fresh to me as well. So you've got a glossary at the beginning. You've got a message from the President Deepak Chopra at the time of Canada Post, and then we're talking about moments and milestones, Canada 150th anniversary. So these are stories that are unique to Canada. You can see here some of the 150 stamps and where they depict around the country, but I get right into it. So here, I'll stand up here. This is the architect for the 1967 Expo, and this stamp depicts the apartment buildings that were housing for all the athletes, all the things that were going on. When you go to Montreal, this is one of the things that still exists today, and is housing that you can live in. So there's that stamp. And then this stamp came out to represent the Trans-Canada Highway. You can see the date on it, 1971, that we have a country that is connected by the #1 highway that goes east to west. Can't talk Canada without talking hockey. So in 1972, it was the Summit Series. That's Canada versus Russia. It is one of the series that seems to define us as a nation. Coming back from being behind and Paul Henderson's goal and all the rest. It was a big thing. So, sorry, Canada versus the USSR. Let's not say Russia because that was the Soviet Union at the time. Then 1980, the Terry Fox run. So Terry Fox was an individual who had lost his leg to cancer. You can see here there, he decided that he would go from Newfoundland to British Columbia, running across the country, raising awareness for the fight for cancer. I remember him coming through Moncton, and every year people do the Terry Fox run in their cities to continue to raise money for cancer. Unfortunately, he made it as far as Ontario before cancer took his life. But many have gone on to continue the fight for cancer research that Terry Fox once started. 1981, here we have a stamp for the Canada Arm, one of the pieces of technology that was designed by Canadians that's used on the space shuttles that go up for NASA. The Canada Arm is part of it that helps hold the astronauts in place when they're working along the space stations. And you can see the date on this, 1982. That is when Canada, there's Queen Elizabeth II with Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the then Prime Minister, who was also the father of our current Prime Minister. they ratified the Constitution in 1982. So even though Canada is 150 years old, it wasn't until 1982 that we had our own constitutional act. And here, 1999 was the third territory that was created, Nunavut. So it was cut out of the Northwest Territories to create another Indigenous territory. So we went from having Yukon and the Northwest Territories to adding Nunavut as well. So what do you think of Canada? We have 10 provinces and we have 3 territories. In 2005, Canada did the Marriage Equality Act, which allowed for same-sex marriages to be legal within the country. And you can see a Canada Post vehicle all dolled up with the stamp on it. In 1976, and then again in 2010, Canada hosted the Paralympic Games. So we have a stamp depicting our Paralympic athletes who have brought much honor to the country. And then here you have a stamp showing the 1976, 1988, and 2010 Olympic Games that were hosted here in Canada, from Canada to Montreal to Vancouver. Some of our known athletes. And then a page that has all the stamps on it. So you can see they were circular when they came out. For those of you who like different shaped stamps. 2017 was the year of the rooster. So there is the rooster stamp, the domestic rate one, and then the international rate one on the specialty sheet. Some of the beautiful pictures that go along in the album. Preserving our heritage. So here we are talking about special places like Old Quebec, which you would have seen recently when I went on my last family vacation. We went there. You can see the funicular going up there. And here are some of the stamps that came out to represent those World Heritage Sites. Grand Anse, Old Meadow National Historic Site in Newfoundland and Labrador. Red Bay Basque Whaling Station, also in Newfoundland and Labrador, there on the stamps. From the dawn of our nation. So this represents Black Canadians, or those people that came and explored Canada. So they thought, or they believed, that as early as the 1500s that Black people were started to come to Canada. This is Mathieu de Costa. He was an interpreter that came in the 1600s to help create trade routes for Europeans with the Indigenous people. And then here we have, stand back up again, this is Canada and the Opera. People that work in arts. And here is the beautiful stamps that go together. And if you had them all, you can see how they kind of run into each other along the way. Individually, they're beautiful, but put them all together, they make a really nice depiction. And then those of you that are into flowers, the Daisy collection, you can see there are the 2 stamps, the purple and the yellow ones. The Battle of Vimy Ridge, what an important milestone for Canadians during the First World War. You can see here what it says. It says, after 4 days of intense fighting, approximately 11,000 Canadians were dead or wounded, but when the battle was over, the Canadians had reclaimed Vimy Ridge for the Allies. Today, on land granted by France to the people of Canada, the Canadian National Vimy Memorial stands high atop the lonely ridge, a silent tribute to every Canadian who took part in the iconic battle, and to all those from our country who fought and died in the First World War. Inscribed on the monument's base are the names of the 11,285 Canadians who lost their lives in France during the war. At the time, had known graves to mark their sacrifice. So there is the monument. These are the trenches. My wife and I went to France after university, and we managed to go to Vimy Ridge, and you walk along, you can see how close the trenches were and really get a full experience. I think I've talked about it before. Here are the stamps that have come out. for Vimy. Very powerful place. It means a lot to go there. All right, moving on. Captain's Log. Those of you who are Trekkie, Star Trek fans, Canada Post has put out some Star Trek stamps along the way. There you can see a shuttlecraft and a domestic rate stamp. Here you can see a $5, you're not getting the reflection, a $5 Borg cube stamp. Really big stamp. And there's a collector sheet. You can see there are all sorts of different versions of Star Trek that are represented here, from Voyager to Deep Space Nine, the original cast. And then here you can see the captains. Oh, it comes out sideways, so I won't show you there. The captains of Star Trek, going back to James T. Kirk, Jean-Luc Picard, Janeway, you know, all the ones you know, and everybody's got a favorite. 2017 also marks 50 years of Formula One. My daughter has gotten really into Formula One, and so we as a household have gotten into Formula One as well here, going back and learning about people like Sir Jackie Stewart, going to the Gilles Villeneuve Museum in Quebec. We did do that as well. You can see Gilles Villeneuve there. Ayrton Senna. All the greats. Michael Schumacher, he was the one that I knew growing up, winning them for Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton, we're getting a little bit more modern here, you can see. And then now if you watch it, as Max Verstappen is the leader. There are the 5 stamps that represent those 5 leaders through the generations. And the Islamic festivals, the stamp that comes out every year. 150 years of masterpieces. So here were photography stamps that have come out, and those artists that have captured these images. Run through a little bit quickly here. There you can see the stamps that they created. I wish these stamps didn't go sideways, you could get a better view. What they have. Beautiful black and white art. Our feathered friends, those of you who like bird stamps, they put out bird stamps in 2017 as well. These are wonderful because if you see the stamp, it's there, but if you get the collector's sheet, you get the full wingspan of the birds and how they go over. So sometimes you really want the souvenir sheet. The Diwali stamps that came out that year, you can see they had a Canada version and an India version. It was a joint venture that year. And this is for the foundation. So the Canada Post Foundation, giving to children's charities. If you get the P, which means it's the domestic rate plus 10, so 10 cents for every stamp was donated to the foundation. They continue doing that this year, or to this day. A league of their own. So now we're talking about the greats of hockey. Wayne Gretzky, among the top of all NHLers. Maurice Richard, the Rocket Richard for the Montreal Canadiens. Jean Beliveau also for the Montreal Canadiens. Gordie Howe, Detroit Red Wings great. He played on some other teams as well, but always known as the Detroit Red Wings. Bobby Orr with the Boston Bruins. Mario Lemieux, Pittsburgh Penguins. And of course, Wayne Gretzky, known as an Edmonton Oiler, but did play in St. Louis and LA and New York in his Hall of Fame career. And there you can see the stamps for them. And they continue with hockey because this one here is also a stamp for North American hockey. So there was a joint venture between Canada and the United States put out for hockey in North America. The spirit of the game. Iconic history. You can see there was a lot of hockey in 2017 showing, which is what I guess Canada is known for. So you can see 100 years of the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's a really cool set. There's 2 here. This one's the puck, so that's a great shape one. And this, but look what's coming up. I know. The stamp, the $5 stamp. It's a massive stamp to begin with, But this part here is actually a fabric piece in the middle. So it has a feel to it. It's raised above the stamp, and it's like a piece of the jersey put right on the stamp. So if you don't have this in your collection, that's one to get, especially if you're a hockey fan. Now, I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan, so it would be better if this was a Montreal Canadiens, but I get it. It was 100 years of the Toronto Maple Leafs at the time. And then a Hanukkah stamp that came out. So every year there are Hanukkah and Christmas stamps that are put out. There is the Christmas one. And then here are the winter holiday ones that came out that year. So you have the domestic rate, the US rate, and the international rate. Sense of whimsy, they call it. And then this one here, the Halifax wrecked. So the Halifax explosion, this is well worth reading too, a piece of Atlantic Canadian history. The First World War was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, but many Canadians may not be aware that one of the most devastating events of the war happened right here at home. On the morning of December 6, 1917, the Norwegian cargo ship Emo, which was passing through the Halifax Harbor Narrows, accidentally collided with the French munition ship Mont Blanc, loaded with more than 2,500 tons of explosives destined for Allied troops in Europe. The collision ignited a fire aboard the Mont Blanc, forcing the crew to abandon ship. Consumed by clouds of thick black smoke, the deserted vessel drifted across the harbor and came to rest against Pier 6 in the busy north end of Halifax. Just before 9:05, about 20 minutes after the fateful collision, Mont Blanc exploded with a force unlike anything the world had ever seen. It was the largest human-made explosion prior to the detonation of the first atomic bomb, and the destruction it caused killed more than 2,000 people, injured 9,000 more, and wiped out the north end of the city, affecting Halifax and its residents for generations. So the Halifax explosion is still talked about today, and its massive destructive power that it had. And that is where they leave year 2017. I feel like I could spend all day just looking at one page, reading the blurbs that they write on each individual stamp. There is some important history in each one of these books that gets put out, and I hate to gloss over them for you guys because I know there's some of you maybe have never heard the stories before or don't know what's going on with those particular stamps. But I do encourage you to go out either and get a copy for your own collection or look up an individual stamp. You can pause and see which one, hey, I'd like to have that one in my collection. That's kind of the point of this, is to encourage other people that maybe weren't collecting Canada in their series, in their collections, that maybe Canada's worth a look, because we've got some great stamps that have come out. I'm trying to showcase them all at an overview. If you want in-depth and more information, certainly grab one of these copies. Either start at the end of this year and get next year's copy when it comes out in December. You can do that, or you can start going back. I know eBay and other places have some of the older books. Even Canada Post, if you go online, you can go back a couple years, depending on how much they have in stock, and get some of the older books as well. Well worth it. But 2017 is one of my favorites of to date that I've shown you, because of all the history that's in it. Every stamp that comes out has a reason why Canada Post puts it out, but this one's great because it looks back at 150 years of history. Now we're older than that now because it's 2017, now we're 2023, so there's more stuff coming out, more great things, and you guys get to look forward to 2018, which will be the next one to be presented in a few weeks' time, I'm sure. All right, you guys have a magical week. What, Polo? You say like, subscribe, share, and tell all your friends?
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?